So, welcome to the first ever Fontan Outcomes Network learning session. So happy to have you here. So excited to be here. Lots of hard work. Next slide. You can go back. I didn't realize you had gone ahead. Recording. We are recording this meeting right now. All of the presentations and the recording will be available after the event, and a post email event will get you to where you can find those. Next slide. We are asking if you are joining as a team, so you're all in one room, and would you make sure you type the participants' names in that room into the chat so that we can log attendance and know everyone that is here. We will be using Zoom polling throughout the day. Use the Zoom, so for, we want you using the Zoom chat feature and Twitter throughout the day. You know, normally when it's been a while, so it's not normal anymore, but when we could get in person and in-person learning sessions, there was a lot of hallway chatter and a lot of energy. The chat feature and the tweeting are some of the best ways we have to kind of mimic that. So please use those throughout the day. If you need technical support, Ryan is on the call. She is available to help you, and she is under tech support Ryan. Next slide. If you haven't already, we'd like you to update both your name and to include your care center. Pretty easy 3-step process. The first is to find the participant icon there circled in red. Then when you click and open that, you'll be able to find your name and hover over more and then click rename. And when you click that rename, this on step 3, there's a box that opens up and you can put the name in you want and then your center. So hopefully you all are all doing that right now. I see a couple switching. So that we know who is joining and which center they're affiliated with. Next slide. And if you're kind of wondering where you're at or wanting information, you're used to having an event program and you have one of those. It was sent to you in a pre-event email. If you're needing to search for it right now, you could search on the from, which is FON@mpcqic.org, or you could search on the subject that is in the light blue there, your guide to our fall 2021 virtual learning session, and that should open up for you and has all the information you need for the day. Next slide. So we will begin with the content. Welcome. Jack Rychek will be our first speaker. He is the co-director of Fontan Outcomes Network alongside Sasha Apatowski. Jack serves as the director of the Fetal Heart Program and the Fontan Rehabilitation, Wellness, Activity, and Resilience Development, AKA FORWARD, program at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. I remember the first time I heard Jack as I was joining this single ventricle community. His name was in connection with the then anxiously awaited scientific statement from the American Heart Association about evaluation and management of the child and adult with Fontan circulation. That statement, along with Jack's expertise, has been foundational for the design of our new FON network. Welcome, Jack.
Thanks very much, Shari, and welcome everybody and good morning. My task is to kick this off and to introduce you to the Fontan Outcomes Network and the state of the network. Like in any good state of the whatever discussion, I'm going to make a few declarative statements, and I think that you'll see that these are all going to be borne out by what I'm going to show you. State of the Fontan Outcome Network is organized and expanding. You're going to hear a lot this morning about the technical, logistical aspects of what we're doing and how we plan to achieve our goals and objectives. It is transformative, and I think you'll appreciate that based on what our objectives and aims are, that we truly want to change the landscape of discovery, learning, and generation of new knowledge as it relates to our patients with single ventricle. And third, I think you'll find it inspiring. The community that's been created between healthcare providers and scientists and families and patients is truly an inspiring endeavor. The purpose of the Fontan Outcomes Network are as follows, and I think it's worth reading through these statements because they're well crafted and they define what our objectives are. We want to build a registry that will catalog clinical data and accurately map the trajectory of individuals with single ventricle disease throughout their lifespan. We want to apply quality improvement science and create a collaborative learning platform. We want to provide a rich foundation of clinical information, phenotypic data to partner potentially with the building of a genotype biorepository. And we wish to promote and create a platform for conducting investigation, exploratory research, and clinical trials. You could look at what we're building from two arms perspectives. One is the learning network and the other is the clinical registry. Both go hand in glove with each other. But the objectives of the learning network are to develop learning aspects that relate to optimizing physical health and functioning, surveillance and support of neurodevelopmental needs, and optimize resilience and emotional health. And our clinical registry will map the clinical trajectory of our patients, create a rich, deep phenotypic library that will be able to partner with the genotype data, and a foundation to conduct research and clinical trials. We've divided our efforts into four domains: engagement and community building, quality improvement, data and analytics, and research. Each of these, again, interdependent and all focusing towards the goals. It's a complex leadership or organizational chart that I'm not going to go through in detail here, but essentially to notify the listeners onto this session and the community in general that this is an elaborate effort, and it is collaborative, and it involves multiple individuals from all scopes of effort within the United States. I want to give particular credit here to a group that was working for a number of years before we've even gotten to this point, the design team, and in particular, call out the efforts of Gail Wright and Diane Pickles and Carol, who led the design team efforts that have brought us to this particular point. The key to being able to achieve what we want to achieve is to collect a rich data set on our patients and to then process that data. How are we going to collect that data? So a brief word on that. Our objectives are to prospectively enroll all patients, all individuals living with a Fontan circulation. There'll be a central IRB with data use agreements between the centers. Enrollment of individuals will take place through participating care centers, and we anticipate this to be a longitudinal data collection. We have some ambitious goals, but I think realistic ones. And within the first year, we hope to enroll 1,000 individuals with a Fontan circulation. What defines the data that we're going to be collecting was mentioned earlier. I was honored to lead a group, an international group that put together a paper in the American Heart Association about 2 years ago now, just really scratching the surface, beginning to get at the characterization of our patients, knowing that there's so much that we do from a cardiac perspective, but also from a non-cardiac, extracardiac perspective, looking holistically at the patient. And this paper and many other deliberations and discussions have led to Sasha and others putting together a draft of the distillation of data elements that we'll be collecting on our patients. The enrollment strategy will be to enroll patients at the time of the Fontan surgery, but also to enroll them at their regular care visits at the different care centers. We are partnering with the venerable organization known as the Broad Institute, which many of you may know is a collaborative between MIT and Harvard. And we've been working with them over the past few months to organize how we're going to be creating this flow of information. There'll be input from the care centers collecting specific data at specific intervals, uploading the data to Broad, and then Broad providing output to us in statistical control process charts for ongoing learning and data that will be incorporated into the registry for QI work and discovery and new knowledge. We have partnered with 12 initiating centers. These are centers that will be piloting the processes that we're talking about, they are just the very beginning, the very start. And I think it's important to appreciate that we quickly plan to expand this to many, many other centers using the NPC-QIC model, which I believe has anywhere between 60 to 70 centers currently involved. And in very short order, within a few months after these 12 centers pilot the flow of data and the collection of data, we will open this up to other centers joining so that we can truly affect a change by enrolling as many patients as we can across the United States. Complex slide as well. I won't go through it in detail, but it's just to let you know that we have mapped out and charted our first year timeline in a very detailed way. And here's where we are right now at the end of October on our learning session and single ventricle patient day coming up tomorrow. And everything to the left of this arrow are things that we've done thus far. And everything's just short to the right are things that are currently in process with the target of a launch in June, early summer of 2022. So we've got a few more things to get done. They are in process as we speak. Another important thing to mention is that we ultimately do believe that what NPC-QIC does and what our objectives are relate to the lifespan trajectory of our individuals with single ventricle heart disease. And that in some way we will create linkage and collaboration between these efforts. Now, exactly what this is going to look like at some point in the future is still under discussion and serious consideration. But there is so much that is consistently of importance to both of these organizations that creating efficiencies and a seamless connectivity between NPC-QIC and the FON is a strong objective. None of this can be done without important support from the healthcare community, from the patient community, and from others who are facilitating this from a financial perspective. So tremendous thanks and gratitude need to be given to the Additional Ventures effort and to the Congenital Heart Alliance of Cincinnati for funding this effort at this point in time. We have a subgroup that's also looking at ways in which to garner additional resources and funding from a development perspective. We do anticipate that there'll be additional funds coming into this overall process of FON in the near future, and we look forward to building that as we build the infrastructure of FON. So the inspirational aspect of what we do relates to the healthcare providers and the motivation that exists by each of the healthcare providers. So I'm going to show you a couple of photos here of individuals that I'm directly involved with and my team's involved with. And this is our Fontan Forward team at CHOP, made up of individuals from a variety of different disciplines, including the mental health specialties, exercise, endocrinology, and hepatology. And our objective is not just to care for our kids in the clinical settings. We see them in the outpatient setting, of course, but also to be able to facilitate what they are doing to the fullest that they can so that they can lead healthy and full lives, be that in the sports realm or in each of their personal activities and such. I'm extremely excited about what we're doing here. It's going to require a fairly large team of individuals with a lot of effort, but I am inspired by what I've seen amongst my colleagues that are part of the FON, and the goals that we've set in front of us are truly achievable, and I do think that we are going to transform the entire field in the coming future. So with that, I will end this presentation and take on my next task, which is actually to introduce the next set of speakers, which continues with this theme of inspiration that I'm offering. going to present to you Catherine Dodds, Katie Dodds, and Taylor Hartzell-Houlihan. Introduce them. So Katie is a nurse practitioner at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Katie is our clinical program manager for the Fontan Forward program at CHOP. I've worked with Katie for close to 30 years now. She is an incredible force in the field of what we do. Her passion and her dedication to patients with single ventricle spans a period of time from the initiation of our strategies and therapies, going back to Bill Norwood and others, to affecting a change in the quality of life of every patient that she touches today. And so I'm so pleased to introduce her in this next session. And partnering with her is a young woman who I just met about 3-4 years ago, and this is Taylor Hartzell-Houlihan. Taylor is currently a second-year medical student at Jefferson University here in Philadelphia. And she approached me, because about 2 years ago now, with an interest in doing some research in the Fontan realm. And so I said, well, why would somebody be that interested at that young age to dive into this particular, somewhat perhaps esoteric area from a medical student perspective? And then, of course, I learned that she herself has single ventricle and has a Fontan circulation. Since that introduction, Taylor and I have been working back and forth. We have a lot of projects we still need to get done that we've been working on, but she is an incredibly productive young woman, very passionate, very dedicated to this area, and already beginning to make some important contributions to our knowledge base. So in this next session, our Ignite Talk, I would like to introduce, I'm proud to introduce Katie Dodds and Taylor Hartzell-Houlihan.
Thank you, Jack, for that very kind introduction. Why should we do this? Fontan surgical palliation does not create normal physiology. The Fontan does not fix or correct congenital heart disease. Survival to the Fontan has been and continues to be carefully scrutinized and studied. We've made tremendous progress over the past almost 40 years in our efforts to achieve survival to the Fontan. We now have databases that track outcomes and details. We now collaborate at a national level to determine and share best practices, pathways, protocols, and we use data to guide this. Centers have amazing dedicated teams to care for, follow, and support patients and families throughout their journey to the Fontan. We have a map. We have a key driver diagram. But after the Fontan, we have no defined or agreed upon routines or protocols. We have no stages, no scripts, no databases, no pathways, no interdisciplinary teams. But there should be. We don't know what the key drivers are to achieve what has to be our aim, which is improved outcomes and lifetime care for Fontan patients. Because our patients and families can face significant challenges. There is an impact and a burden that increases over time. What do we know? We know that our patients have a health condition that is persistent and long-lasting in nature. We know that our patients have a disease that lasts longer than 3 months. It may get slowly worse over time. It may lead to death. It may cause permanent changes to the body, and it may and does impact their quality of life. And this is the definition of a chronic illness. And the mandate for chronic illness care is the coordination of medical care with the development of patient-centered medical homes and accountable care organizations. We have a responsibility to create medical homes for our Fontan patients. We have a responsibility to improve outcomes and lifetime care for Fontan patients, but we do not know what the key drivers are. We do know that we need to start with the development of structured interdisciplinary teams that follow Fontan patients. We need to build expertise, knowledge, breadth, and depth. We need to capture the data and track patient outcomes, and we need to share data. A decade ago, we started the single ventricle survivorship program at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Our aim was surveillance of Fontan survivors through comprehensive and multidisciplinary evaluations to determine touch points in time in a single clinic setting with a multidisciplinary team. That team included cardiology, hepatology, endocrinology, and immunology. Our focus was on complications. Our focus was on surveillance. We were looking for disease burden. We had an illness model. What we learned is that if you build something like this, patients will come. We've now seen almost 600 patients over the past 10 years. Our patients have had multiple follow-up visits with the program, and we've learned about the liver, lymphatic issues, growth, immune function. We've created a team of experts at our center. We have some breadth and depth. We have some data. We are learning about some key drivers. But the most important lesson we learned is that our patients are not failing. In fact, most of the patients we've evaluated in our program are well, but they have a chronic illness. Surveillance is not the only key driver. And so 2 years ago, we pivoted to the Fontan Rehabilitation Wellness Activity and Resilience Development Project. We added an exercise trainer, a psychologist, a dietitian, a social worker, because we recognized that while we needed to continue to focus on survivorship, we had to start focusing on wellness promotion and resilience building. The glass for our Fontan patients is not half empty. The glass is half full. We have challenges, but we have amazing opportunities to make the Fontan the best it can be for each patient, to continue surveillance, but to include health and wellness promotion, to optimize tolerance of the Fontan well past 30 years, to identify complications early, and to identify complications early and determine when to timely refer patients for transplant. We need to develop assessment tools that assess not just disease burden, but also wellness. And then we need to promote wellness. We need to improve the scope, the depth, and the breadth of the teams caring for these patients and their families across the country. And we need to collaborate with each other because this is bigger than a single center. We need to collect data because data is power. And now is the perfect time. We have AHA guidelines that guide evaluation and management of children and adults with Fontan circulation. We have multiple centers in the United States that have outstanding Fontan programs. We have patient and parent involvement and engagement. We have an international Fontan interest group. We have the outstanding work of the National Pediatric Cardiology Quality Improvement Collaborative. Why should we do this? Because it's just so important. And now is the time. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Taylor Houlihan. Thank you so much, Dr. Rychik, for the wonderful introduction. I first heard about Fontan Outcomes Network at Cardiology 2020 conference hosted by CHOP. And ever since then, I've been so excited about the potentials for this network and just the repercussions that this will have on Fontan care. So I'm so honored to speak to all of you today and share some of my excitement for FON, as well as my personal experiences with exercise, one of the proposed tenets of focus for this group. So if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So as you can tell, a lot has changed since 1997. I was born to my wonderful parents, their first daughter, and about 6 months old, it was discovered that I actually had some significant heart defects, namely tricuspid atresia, dextrocardia, and transposition of the great vessels. So I underwent the Glenn procedure at CHOP around 6 months, and then my Fontan was completed at about 1.5. My experience in the medical field at a young age fostered a deep interest in medicine, and I am now currently a third year at Thomas Jefferson University and very interested in pediatrics and cardiology and potentially returning to the field that saved my life to help out children like myself and to continue to promote Fontan care. So it's been a long journey, but I'm so excited to be here. And it's been so wonderful to have so many care providers who have supported me as I achieve the things I want to do with my life. So we can go to the next slide. One of the last things that my surgeon, Dr. Spray, left my parents after my surgeries was this. He said, Taylor may never be an Olympian, but she can do whatever she wants to do. My mom knew that exercise was important and that she should keep me moving, but she wasn't really sure what type of activities would be good for me. So she signed me up when I was 4 years old for a very non-Olympic activity, ballet, and the rest was history. Ballet was a super important avenue for me to learn about my body, learn about how to exert myself, and just learn my limits. My mom wanted an activity that I could do in the air conditioning, not in the hot sun, running around for hours like soccer, something like that. This seemed to work really well. What she didn't know was that ballet class was the perfect setup for my physiology. The teaching of a combination and rest in between was absolutely perfect and allowed me to thrive and get the breaks I needed. She also didn't know that lower body muscle is so important for Fontan patients to increase venous return. And ballet is one of those activities that really helps you build your lower body strength. So while she didn't have a lot of guidance from my cardiologists and doctors about what activity to put me in, she ended up making an incredible choice that has served me well for my entire life thus far. You can go to the next slide. So I continued to dance from age 4 all the way up and through college. It was a really great outlet for me. And as I stated before, I learned a lot about my body and my limits. But there were always questions for me about how hard to push myself and when it was time to stop. I experienced a lot of chest pain sometimes when working out, and I couldn't always get a straight answer from my cardiologist about why this was happening to me, if I needed to be scared that something wrong was occurring, or if I just needed to push through. So there were still some unanswered questions, although I did receive a lot of really important support from my care providers. Things like regular exercise testing and appointments helped put my mind at ease, but I still always had some lingering questions about whether or not I was doing something that was right for my body. You can go to the next slide. Well, I don't have time to dance anymore in medical school. My experience with ballet has really set me up for a lifelong relationship with exercise. I find physical activity to be so important, not just for my physical health and my heart health, but also for my mental and emotional health. As someone living with a chronic condition, there are some days where you feel like you don't have a lot of control over your body, but to be able to exert yourself and move around helps kind of give you some authority back over what your body does. So I have so appreciated all of the support, again, from my cardiologists and care providers who have continued to help me and guide me and offer me advice about what activities to do and to stay away from. Next slide. So why we need FON. FON is going to be probably one of the biggest groundbreaking organizations for Fontan care in the future. I think it's so important to create a unified message of guidance and support for Fontan patients. As I reach out and hear from other Fontan patients, I'm always interested to see the discrepancies and the different messages from care providers. So I think it's so important that we are focusing on getting everyone on the same page together so we can offer good, sound advice to Fontan patients. I think also ensuring proper exercise testing and annual exams is a very important way to offer comfort for Fontan patients who might feel anxious about exerting themselves and exercising. Also, I think FON is so important just to empower the current and future generations of patients with Fontan circulation to pursue physical activity, just to give these patients the peace of mind and the guidance necessary to go out and use their bodies in the way that they're supposed to be used. I'm so excited for Fontan Outcomes Network. I'm so excited for the support that they're going to be offering for patients, not just with regards to exercise, but with regards to liver function and reproductive health, mental health, all these things. I can't wait to see what this is going to do for future generations. And I'm also so excited to see how this is going to shape my practice as a physician when I hopefully one day get to treat Fontan patients as well. So I know there's a lot of work ahead of us. I know there are lots of things that need to be done, but I cannot wait to see how this is going to change the landscape of Fontan care. And I am so grateful to all of you who have dedicated your careers to making this possible. So thank you so much, and keep up the amazing work.
Thank you, Taylor. And thank you both to Taylor and Kate for challenging us to continue to change the landscape and improve. So going to introduce our next speakers, Stacy Lynn and Carol Lannon. They are both on the executive leadership for Fontan Outcomes Network, which is also affectionately known as FON. Stacy is the parent director for FON, in addition to being co-founder and president of Sisters by Heart. Carol Lannon is the collaborative science director for FON and serves as senior quality advisor for the American Board of Pediatrics. Both Carol and Stacy together have over a combined 35 years experience designing and leading networks such as FON. As a matter of fact, one of the origin stories for FON involves the two of them. While virtually watching none other than Jack Rychek present a Fontan manuscript back in 2016, they started a text string with others. And the text could be summarized something like, next phase, let's get started, STAT, referring to expanding a partner network NPC-QIC from the first year of life for hypoplastic left heart syndrome patients to all single ventricle patients and families across the lifespan. Well, Stacy, while not at STAT speed, we are here. We've started. Now, Carol and Stacy, what are the opportunities for participants to engage in FON?
Jerry, thanks so much for that welcome and introduction. Certainly, FON has been something that has been in our minds and hearts for several years now. And I know that those who are joining us following the NPC learning session yesterday have been thinking about this for several years as well. So it's fabulous to be here this morning and to be starting and kicking off FON with this wonderful team. And I cannot wait to begin collaborating with everyone. So Carol and I are going to talk a little bit about engagement opportunities for everyone who wants to be involved in Fontan Outcomes Network, whether you're a clinician, parent, a researcher, a patient. We're going to share those current opportunities, opportunities that may be on the horizon, and you can go to the next slide. I'm going to share current opportunities, those on the horizon, and then those just over the horizon. We know that the passion and desire, the strong desire that we all feel to get moving is shared by everyone, especially those on today. One of the strengths, you can go to the next slide. One of the strengths of learning networks is that's shared by all cardiac networks is the strength through numbers. And FON's community building and engagement work group is really focusing on three aspects to get started. And one is raising awareness about the work of FON. We're going to be doing that through social media channels, through blog posts, and our HeartHero campaign, which we started to kick off with our monthly newsletter. And I'll talk about HeartHeroes in just a minute. But the work groups awareness priority is really to get centers and patients and families aware of FON and how they can get involved. And our second priority is to communicate how to do that. So communicating past opportunities, current opportunities, and our future activities for the entire single ventricle community. We'll be doing that through our monthly newsletter, through weekly communications to key contacts at our care centers. And we also want to ensure that we are sharing and exchanging intercenter knowledge through clinical vignette presentations at case review conferences. And last, but certainly not least, we are committed to engaging all members of the single ventricle community. And we'll do that through learning sessions like today, Patient Day, which is tomorrow. One I am excited for is the social media takeover, which will be coming soon. And through the recruitment of patients, parents, and clinicians to participate in sub-work groups in the areas of data and analytics, quality improvement, research, and through community building and engagement. And those sub-work groups, likely the community building and engagement will have opportunities sooner than later. So, and also I wanted to point out, to assist with patient and family engagement, which is extremely important to learning networks. Diane Pickles and I are working with our partners at Cardiac Networks United to design a quality improvement orientation, which is geared for patients and families. It'll be a 2-hour virtual course to provide high-level introduction to quality improvement concepts and data, to kind of talk about public reporting, the strengths and limitations of data sets, and to prepare patients and families for upcoming learning sessions. So needless to say, if you're not currently following FON on one of our social media channels, go ahead and do that now so you don't miss any announcements or opportunities to get involved. And one of those ways to get involved, you can go to the next slide, is through our Heart Heroes campaign. So each month, FON will be highlighting a hero within the single ventricle community. Anyone is free to nominate a nurse, a patient, physician, family member, therapist, really anyone who has positively impacted a single ventricle journey. We'd love their nominations to come in. The Community Building and Engagement Work Group is accepting new nominations for 2022, and we will spotlight a new hero each month in our From the Heart newsletter. We'll also be posting the Heart Hero on social media and our website. And just so you know, we will reach out to nominated individuals to receive permission before they are spotlighted. And we know that there are so many heroes out there in this space. And so if you can just think of someone who holds a special place in your heart, you can nominate them at the fontanoutcomesnetwork.org, nominate a Heart Hero link that is noted there, and get them nominated soon so we can share and keep motivating others to get involved with FON. I did message Carol this morning right when this started. I got a little emotional because it feels like we've been planning for today for a long time, and I'm just so excited to be part of this and so excited to collaborate with people across the country and patients and families to improve outcomes. And I'll turn it over to Carol now.
Thanks, Stacy. When Stacy texted me, we've just been working on this, and Stacy is the person from whom I've learned the most. She's really changed my career in terms of partnering with patients and families. So it's an emotional day, and we're so excited to be launching with you. What I'm going to do is talk a bit about future opportunities for the broad cardiology patient, clinician, parent community. In 2022, we'll be developing resources and educational webinars for the community. In late 2022-23, as Jack mentioned, we'll be really welcoming additional FON centers so that there is access to data for improvement in research, that, as Jack said, and Sherry, will have an all teach, all learn, and will contribute to changing the outcome for patients and families. Next slide, please. As we get ready to do that, we wanted to think about what can we do before we have a fair amount of data in the registry. Usually we look at data, as Katie pointed us to tell us where the gaps are. But we thought, you know, we have a lot of clinicians, patients, and parents who can really help us know what's missing right now. What can we start working on? So with the 12 founding care centers, we did a survey in the last few months and asked the question, please share at least 3 areas where practice standardization would be most likely to improve long-term patient care and outcomes. We also asked in the Single Ventricle Patient Day survey, please indicate topics of interest. And next slide. These were the 5 topics that were most mentioned by both clinicians and patients. Liver health assessment, exercise and physical activity, as Taylor so nicely highlighted for us, emotional health, which both Katie and Taylor highlighted, transplant, and then birth control and pregnancy. So let me just share briefly what we plan to do with these areas and how we want to move forward before we have even data in the registry. Next slide, please. So what we want to do beginning now is identify 1 to 2 projects to start working on. We're going to initially pull from work groups from these 12 founding centers while the registry is being built, so that they can help us synthesize consensus best practices. We'll identify and, if needed, develop practical resources, which might be care practice plans or patient and family materials. We want to share what we're learning openly with the community. So our thought is that in the next calendar year, we'll be having webinars, and there'll be resource areas where we can post things on our website. And we expect that these areas will serve as the basis for improvement efforts, that they've bubbled up from key targets. Next slide. So what does it mean when we're going to do this? On the left is one of the early documents that came from NPC QIC, and it was developed by the 7 founding care centers. And it was the red flag action plan for parents. What do I do when I go home after the first surgery? How do I know when to call? And that was really a template that we used to begin to standardize care. It evolved from the initial template. The next is what the Action Network has put together for exercise for patients with heart failure. And so it's something that certainly we don't want to recreate the wheel, but that may be a good start for us, or it may be what we need. And then on the right is something that Stacy led along with others in NPC QIC, preparing some things, drafting and then refining materials for patients along the continuum, including preparing for FON. Next slide. So I just wanted to end before we open for questions with reminding you this is the timeline that Jack shared. Here's where we are. If you click again, we're at our FON learning session, and the Single Ventricle Patient Day is tomorrow. Really exciting. If you click again, what we'll be doing between today and tomorrow are really learning about these care practice projects and community webinars. We'll then be, if you go to the, if we go back a minute, go to the red box, the next wave of centers will be engaging and then launching the registry. So I'm going to turn this back to Sherry for questions and answers.